I've started.
Yeah, I want to.
Whose it is. And that's pretty much everything.
Hi, Cindy. 2 minutes.
You want to check on YouTube just to see if you can find the link? Or just
yeah.
type in Daniel Davis.
Think of a drive, but it's just.
I guess it's Aunt Lizzie. Look. Anna.
That target memory.
It says you're live.
I'm gonna see it. Daniel, you want to come sign the guitar?
Oh, you remember? Hey, Greg, come on. Put it away. If you don't want it, put it away. Huh? Okay, have it. But don't make a big production out of it. You need to sit off to the side so you can see the mascot and have a bite. Over here.
The YouTube? Yeah, it's on Facebook.
Yeah, stand behind Rahima. No. There we go. Don't sit. Oh, I thought you were going to sit down in the crowd.
You just have to go to YouTube and Daniel Dingess and it's there. And I think you post the link on the channel.
Okay, I'm gonna sign this thing.
On the obituary.
Yeah, this is fine. Thank you.
Your friends are going to watch? Okay. Oh, that doesn't That'd be weird. It was on Mom's Facebook.
Yeah, he is Sue's son. So she's our aunt.
And he's your
nephew.
Danny's nephew, your cousin.
Yes. All right. Yeah. Wait, okay.
Yeah, I was like.
Like this. Well, no, not the chair.
Nice, Gordon.
Generally, this goes back in there. So this section is included.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Now it's attaching the file to the email. I wish you would have told me to do this earlier, dude. You know how to cut those.
Yeah, no, but we're good because we're gonna play.
What?
We're gonna do it at the end.
Yeah, but I don't want to be sitting here on my computer.
So from 11 to
They can't see you. They just think you're sitting there.
I want to be
No,
here.
I know.
I'd be like, hey mom, you know when you're gonna come home? She goes, I'm not. So what's going on? No, this happened. I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh.
Did you take all my apples?
Like, yeah, how?
well, given the pandemic,
That's what they're going to do.
Daddy, I'm gonna go get a
I
water.
wanted to put
water right next to your seat. Okay. Where do you know where to get one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm learning now that the internet is quite shit.
What you know what you do is if you can't live stream, record it and upload it. Yeah. Or do both.
That's what I have to do because I mean the quality.
Maybe put a comment on there. We'll upload that.
To add to it. So there's also Facebook Live on.
It's probably because I'm trying to do this.
But I think it's
I'm
a
taking away bandwidth.
bandwidth issue.
Anna, if you're still eating, can you come over here, please?
And you sure you can't just play it from the YouTube video that I sent you?
I want to make sure there's no feedback issues between like using YouTube to stream and then also playing a YouTube video.
Because it advises you that like doing that might.
Is this the YouTube video?
That's the video, but I'm trying to get
Where's
it
your
to send
glasses,
it to you.
baby?
Before, like,
Hey, where's your glasses? Yeah, you've already had cereal. No, wait. You had a bagel and strawberries and a banana.
No, what that was recorded.
They were finally going to do it. And by that it was like,
nobody can see your face.
No, no.
Hey,
And watch the cord.
Anna. 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 Don't touch it.
And the cord.
No. Do not touch the computer. Come here, put your mask on. Ask Daddy. Every other day you guys hate apples. Now you want all of Daddy.
That's normally how it goes, right?
I'm sorry.
Ian's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
I heard.
Yeah. Yeah. So eyebrows back. He's getting eyebrows back. Yeah.
And he's like contributing or something.
Oh, are we live? No, that's your countdown. Wait, this says we're live.
Next week.
Oh, shoot.
Then we'll know. Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. You know, it's like hard to say it. It's scary. Like, oh, we're going.
You should take a lot of things
Sounds like
in the business. Like, start
What?
yeah, you can for a walk last Sunday at Snake Lake. Leanna and Dave, right? Because Dave is
yeah.
like hiked up the side of stuff at Snake Lake. Leanna had it.
No, I'm trying to upload the video because Daniel doesn't want to stream it.
So, Liz, are you retired?
I am retired. I was like right behind him, and I was like,
It's like,
oh no, you're fine.
No, but I got some change. If you can find the card for the change.
It shouldn't be going into standby with it's plugged in.
We have some friends that work in family.
Yes. I mean, we're live right now.
Yeah, don't be like Scott.
I don't know if this is going to get to in time. And I think that it's going to mess up.
How did you get this so loose? How did you get this so loose?
I don't know. I was trying to figure that out, and I don't know what I touched. I didn't touch anything.
It's just that.
See, I've got a green thumb for technology, but then I've got a bad old.
I believe it is. Yeah, you got audio.
Daniel, I'm just going to...
Yeah, just cancel it. It's fine. Oh, just have them search on YouTube for Daniel Dingess. Or they'll see a picture of Daniel.
Gail, would you join me, please?
And we'll be live.
Daniel, I did email you the list of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's all
This shouldn't be going on standby.
You okay, Dan?
Oh, are we putting that in the car? What? Or is
Is everyone comfortable?
Yes.
Good. good. Take my mask down for a minute, breathe. And number one, thank you. Thank you for coming to our home. And we really want to extend a really deep, heartfelt thank you to Denise and the family for allowing us this honor to have Danny's celebration here. This is, we couldn't have asked for anything better. And thank everybody for coming, and particularly Andy and his family had to get on an airplane and come across the country to be here to support Mom and his brothers, and truly wonderful. But again, thank you for being here, and we have an hour and a half, so we'll just keep it moving. Thank you. And oh, by the way, I'm Labor Gail's designer.
Thank you. It's an honor to have this event here.
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes. So with that, I could tell one story or two about Danny and go on and on, but I thought it's apropos if we start with the family. But before that, Dennis has a poem he would like to read. And for those that don't know, Dennis is Daddy's favorite nephew.
Denise asked us to help her pick some readings, so we're starting with, well, there's a variety. There are three things we have, but we're starting with the big book, the Bible, Ecclesiastes. This is from the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon, king of Israel, who, when he became king, realized he didn't know what he was doing. And so he said, God, just make me wise. And he was made the wisest man of all time, according to the Bible. This is from the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes. Some of you will recognize the words as being what Pete Seeger used to write the lyrics to Turn, 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 which the Limelighters sang, and the Byrds made an international hit, which I just found out the other night was apparently one of Danny's favorite groups. For everything there is a season, and a time for every important matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to destroy, and a time to construct. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to lament, and a time to dance. A time to make love, and a time to refrain. Time to gather stones together. A time to search, and a time to give up. A time to hold on to, and a time to throw away. A time to rip out, and a time to mend. A time to be silent, and a time to speak up. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time to wage war, and a time to make peace. But in the end, what difference does it make what anybody does? What do the workers gain from all this work? I've had a good look at the busy work that God has given the human race. True, God has made everything beautiful in its own time and in its own way. He has set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. So there's nothing better for people than to be happy, than to do good while they live. That each may eat and drink and find satisfaction in their life and their love. This is the
the word that sticks in my memory is the word happy. And when I think of Danny, I remember Danny always being a happy person. And when I look at Daniel Jr., I also think of Danny being that quiet guy over on the side, sort of unreserved man, but a man that we all hold in our heart because we all loved him dearly. We know we didn't love him as much as you did, but we all of us here loved him dearly. And with that, I'd like you to start with your family memories and then pass it on to other family members. And then after the family, we'll open it. Are you okay?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I tried to write stuff down, then I said I should just go from the heart. Got competition.
Smells better than Danny.
True. There's so much to say about him, and I could stand up here for hours. But I think, I thought about this a lot last night. I think that there was a reason that we were brought together, because our social circles should never have intermixed. And I actually met him through Pearl when I was married to the Big's dad. And I would be over at her house, and sometimes Danny would show up, and we'd spar. He thought I was mouthy. I thought he was whiny. But I always had this soft spot for him in my heart, because he had this kind of wall about him, but his eyes told a different story. And when he found out that I had gotten divorced, we would run into each other like every 3 or 6 years. I mean, he'd be around and then he'd disappear, and I'd go on to my life, and then somehow or another he found out that I'd gotten divorced. So he sent me this email saying, would you perhaps consider the possibility of maybe going out to dinner with me sometime? And in my fashion, I sent him back saying, sure, I consider the possibility of perhaps going out to dinner with you sometime, but I'm going to need 3 months to figure out what I'm going to wear. So we finally set a date. We went out for dinner. He was a half an hour late to pick me up, so I thought, well, he's decided that this was not a good idea, and stood me up. But then what happened was, he run his car through the car wash, because anything that was important had to have a clean car. And the sensor on the car got wet, and so it was blowing out hot air. And he like, oh shit, oh, sorry. I bathed in perfume, and he hates it. So we went to Salty's in Redondo, and we got to the restaurant, and to this day, I'm so impressed by this. He left his cell phone in the car. I said, don't you want to take your cell phone? He goes, no, I want to be with you. And that still resonates with me. So we went to dinner, and this is around the time that the Seiko Field was put up the vote to fund it. And the voters voted it down, and Seattle City Council found a way to appropriate the funds. So he made the mistake of asking me what I thought about that. And so I told him my opinion, and all he could say was, here we go. And off we went. And I mean, I think when we got married, I'm pretty sure there was a pot around somewhere taking bets on how long we would last, because he's stubborn, I'm stubborn, we both want to be in charge, and I think we were both kind of broken when we met. And I was pretty black and white,
back then in terms of there's right, there's wrong, there's no gray area. And he's pretty gray. And it worked. We balanced each other out. And we learned a lot from each other. I taught him that when you have two people in the car, you can use the carpool lane. You know, he's like, it doesn't always have to be black and white. It's okay if it's gray. You know, he was a glass half full kind of a guy, and it's like, well, where the hell's the other half a glass of water is where I was. So, I mean, we had some moments, and some of them weren't so pretty, but we finally meshed it together, and it worked. And he was, once you got past that wall, and I think it was because of his self-preservation, he was the kindest, most giving man that I have ever encountered. I mean, he would give anybody their shirt off his back. If anybody needed anything, he was there. Sometimes to the detriment of our own plans, which sometimes caused some arguments, but whatever. He would, and you know, if I wanted to do something or if the kids needed something, he's like, we'll work it out, we'll make it happen. That was just who he was. And, you know, all of this happened, which was kind of a shock, but Danny was not one to seek attention. He was kind of reserved and kind of like to stand back and watch what happened. And he was, I mean, that man is the strongest man I've ever known. But he was very quiet about it. And he had a reserve and a steel, I mean, he did not want to go. He fought like nobody's business. And he was going to beat this. And he kept saying, I got this. It's going to be fine. I got this. And he did have it. His body just had other plans. So, I'm sorry that you're all here today for this reason, but I'm honored that you guys are all here because that's a testament to what a great person he is. And, just thank you, everybody, for looking out for me and the boys. Some days are better than others, but the kids and I, we've got this. And I might lean on you once in a while, but I know Danny's biggest concern through all of this when we would talk about stuff was, what about you and the boys? And I said, honey, we will be fine. You've taught us how to live. You've taught us how to love. You've taught us how to be a team. So, here's to Danny.
And Denise? At his bedside when he grabbed your hand.
Oh, yeah. The night that or the early morning that he passed away, first of all, he said to me, when are we going home? And I said, honey, we can't go home. You can't go back up to the 8th floor because you're too sick. And I can't take you home because you're too sick. And he said, please, can I go home? I said, honey, you can't. And, so, the last thing that he did was I was holding his hand and he pulled my hand to his face and he kissed my hand, and that was, took his last breath, and then that was it. So I know he loved me, and the boys. I just hope he knows how much he is loved. So.
Thank you. Kim?
Sorry, I needed to write this down, otherwise I would lose track of what I wanted to say. I have a really hard time explaining to my friends what Danny meant to me. A lot of people who don't have divorced parents, or who do, don't understand how somebody who's a stranger can love and be loved as much as Danny was. Danny to me was more than a stepdad. I called him my bonus dad, my stepped-up dad, because that's who he was. Whenever any of us kids needed something, he was there for us. For example, one October when Mom and Danny were still dating, and, you know, back then I thought he did it just to impress Mom, but me and my best friend didn't have Halloween costumes, and here it is October 31st, and they blew up like 4 packages of balloons, like by mouth, so that we could have costumes that day. And, like, that was just who Danny was. He always went above and beyond for us. From the moment I moved in with him, he treated me like I was his daughter. I loved sitting down at the kitchen table every night as a family, eating dinner and sharing the stories of our day and laughing about classmates whose names were Cornejo and laughing that they thought it was cornhole. He was a real dad to me. He was tough when I needed to be, which wasn't all that often, but he was always loving along the way. For example, after I took my first driving test and I failed, and I swore I never would drive again, he forced me to get behind the wheel. And even when I was frustrated and slammed on the gas pedal, he talked me down. He expressed his frustration with my choice, but he talked me down, and I realized he did that so that I could regain my confidence. When my first husband came over to ask permission to marry me, he told him something along the lines of, if you touch a hair on her head, I'm coming after you. And that's just who he was. He was very protective of us. And when I had to put my dog Zoe down, he left work to make sure he was there. And he hugged me while I ugly cried and wouldn't leave until he made sure I was okay. And he was always a big kid at heart too. I loved the memories I have of going to Disneyland, and he would woke us up at like the butt crack of dawn because we had flex passes, and he wanted to get every penny out of that trip. And even when me and Andy were too exhausted, he made us go on Space Mountain at least 5 more times. And because of that, Danny wasn't perfect. He had his imperfections, as Mom did too. He was always a last-minute shopper, and he'd wait until literally Christmas Eve before buying gifts, but he always gave the best gifts. And I remember a few times he invited me to go along on Christmas Eve at 10 o'clock at night. We'd go to Walgreens, and we would pick up some of the last little things, because there was times too when Danny, and we call it and I had to hide that laughter because Mom didn't find it as funny, but it was one of his endearing imperfections. There is one moment at the Northwest Youth Leadership Conference when I got a medal, and the most memorable part for me actually isn't receiving the medal. It was how many people came up to me afterwards and told me how proud Danny was of me. He just beamed the whole time I was on that stage. And to this day, every year at conference, that's what people remember him as. I'll always be thankful for Danny and how good of a husband he was to Mom. And when we lived in the Lakewood house, they would stay up late, talking and laughing. And I know this because we shared a bedroom wall. And there were times when I'd bang my fist against the wall and say, "Hey guys, I have to go to school tomorrow, I have a test." But that's who they were. They were best friends together. And I know that their relationship wasn't perfect, but there's never a doubt, never a moment that I would doubt his love and his devotion to Mom or anybody he considered family. I'm very sad that he's gone. He leaves a lot of stories unfinished, but I'm thankful for the time that he was here, for the moments we got to share together. And like music that he used to play, his memory will resonate in my heart forever. I love you, Danny. Thank you for being the best bonus dad.
It's kind of chilly out here.
So while Matthew gets prepared, you know, he gave his boys very nice gifts. He gave Matthew music that he'll enjoy all his life, and quiet and still Daniel, he gave him the ability to focus on this technological age that we live in, and he'll carry that through his life, and we can appreciate him for that and keep our love in our heart for those gifts that he's given his boys. Matthew.
Well, I just want to start off by saying thank you everyone for being here. It's not how I pictured it, to be honest. I always thought he'd see me turning 18 and graduate high school, and that he would be there for all the big moments, or more of the big moments, but I know that he is there, or he is here, he's just not with us, but it's nothing that I expected, but just gotta roll with the hits and keep going. That's what he would want. So I wrote down a little something that I want to share with everyone, kind of what he meant to me. So, my dad, Daniel W. Dingess, he was and still is the most positive influence in my life. He didn't tell many stories, and some of those stories I'm still learning to this day. He actually had a lot of fun when he was little, even though he didn't act like it. But just learning about his character from my mom and the stories that she told about him has impacted my life and how I do things today. Learning about how he pulled the chair out for her on their first date, and how he'd stay up with my brother and I all night so my mom could sleep, has shaped my character. My dad is the strongest and most loving person I know. The last thing he ever said to me was, "I'm so proud of you." Every time I go to sleep, I hear his words. And sometimes they make me sad, but other times they make me realize that even in his last moments, all he cared about was telling us how much we meant to him. My dad taught me what it meant to be kind, how to treat people, how to think about others before myself. A couple of months ago, I had a conversation with him about something. I don't even remember what it was. We got in a fight, but he sat me down and he told me that night that just to do what I love and stay true to myself. And if I do that, then I'll find my purpose, and then I can just go from there. My dad guided me into my passion for music, my love for art, my drive in sports, and my love for family. And every day I wish I had more time with him. I wish that I could throw the football with him one more time, or play the guitar with him for one more night. But I know if he were here today, he wouldn't want us to be sad. He would want us to be happy. And he'd want us to celebrate his life. So to end things on a good note, I want to say thank you, Mom. Thank you, Daniel, for being there for me. Thank you, Emily, for being the best big sister. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And Dad, I know you're somewhere. Keep flying high. I love you. Thank you.
Very nice. Noah?
First thing that popped into my mind when I think of my grandparents is playing guitar with them. They would play every other day, and only for about 2 months until they had to go to the hospital for the first long-term stay. But he got too sick and we couldn't do them after that. But we played sometimes. He got too sick and we couldn't do them after that. But we played sometimes. He would get a call and he would say he'd call me back. But in an hour I'd have to call him and he'd pick up and say, "Where have you been?" And I'd say, "You said you would call me back." He said, "I don't know how to." So then we would finish our lesson. The day before he passed away, my dad passed me his phone. Or the day before he passed away, my parents told me how he got really sick and that we might have to go out and say bye. But the next morning, my dad handed me his phone and said, "Do you want to say something to Grandpa? And we're probably not going to go. We're probably not going to have enough time to go see him." So I said, "Hi, Grandpa. I love you and I hope you get well soon. I love you. Bye. I miss you so much, Grandpa. And I hope you're somewhere where you can jam out as much as you want. I love you." And this is me saying, rock on and goodbye.
Andy?
Sure. Danny was my stepdad, and I never lived with Danny and Mom, but so Danny and I weren't all that close. We had spent some time together, just me and him a little bit, but mostly for me, I was just amazed at how good of a grandpa Danny was to my 3 kids. Even though Danny and I weren't that close, he took good care of my 3 kids and loved them like any grandpa would. I don't know. He meant a lot to my kids, so, and I love him for that. That's all I'll say.
I'm gonna sprinkle mine in.
Has the family finished all their comments? Family finished? Scott, you good?
Hi everybody, I'm Denise's brother. I'm a big pussy. I didn't know Danny that well either. I mean, we hung out sometimes. But you could tell he was a quality dude. Just is.
You got some milk.
He was a quality man, and his love of music was profound and influenced me a lot. I have a very fond memory of one night, I think it was like Christmas time, I'm not sure. But Denise and my dad was living in Bend still, and we were hanging out, and he brought his guitar, and Danny brought his guitar, and the two of us were playing, and Danny was, you could just tell he was really enjoying having the opportunity to just be in the moment and play that guitar. He's an accomplished musician. You know, I try to play guitar, but the guy's in a different league. You know, it was just a treat to be with him that night. And even though, like I said, we didn't hang out that much, it was just there was some kind of bond that was happening that night that's still with me today. But the thing that I remember the most, the thing that I'm going to carry in my heart the most, I think, in the wake of his loss, is how much he loved my sister and our kids. And a lot of families don't have that. And it was genuine. It wasn't some bullshit role that he put on or some sort of, appearance that he would create to satisfy the social needs of the time. He just did. And I respect him for that, and I love him for that. He's so proud of you guys. And I know you know it, but you're going to be hearing it for the rest of your life from me. And I want you two to know something. I want to be that. Just know that you guys aren't going this alone. You got people who love the hell out of you, including everybody in this room. And specifically Lizzie and me. And if you guys ever need anything, it's a phone call. That's it. Bottom line. Love you guys. And thanks for putting up with this.
I didn't plan on talking, so this is kind of off the top of my head. But as the person who knew Dan longer than anyone else, I'm his big sister. Everything that all of you have said is so true. Even when he was growing up. From the time that I gave him chicken pox when he was a baby. The gift that keeps on giving. And, it's just even though there were 4 kids growing up in our house, Dan and I were the oldest, and there was so many years between all of us. It was like Dan and I were one set, Bill and Judy were another set, and so when we were growing up, in lots of ways, Dan and I were closer. And like you said, you know, he was always there for you. And when I got married, but my dad had just had a back operation, and in those days that was more traumatic than it is now. But he wasn't allowed to go anywhere, so my wedding ended up being at home on 121st Street. And Dan didn't want me to get married, so he set the alarm clock to go off in the middle of the ceremony. And he said he was giving me a last chance to say no. Which maybe would have been the smart thing to do. That's not what happened. But anyway, and then I to back up a little bit, when we were growing up, we didn't get a very big allowance, and so sometimes if we wanted an album, like when the Beatles first came out, we went together and purchased with our money and bought the albums so that we shared it. And I think you all know that Dan had a huge collection of albums. And, I think he could probably outdo a lot of the libraries around. Anyway, I wanted to just say that I love him very much, and I just wish that we could have had more time together. And I just appreciate the last times I saw him. And not long before he went to heaven, my telephone rang. It was Denise. I dropped the phone. It was like 10 after 3 or something in the morning. But I got it, and we got online, and Denise had held the phone up to Dan's ear and let me talk to him. And she said that he turned his head toward the phone. So I like to think that he recognized my voice. And so I was able to tell him that I love him, and I also told him that the Lord was with him and he would help him, whether it was through healing, even with a miraculous healing at the end, or whether it was to take him to heaven, that the Lord would be there with him. And I just wanted to give him some comfort. And I also saw that Dan and Denise had a really good marriage, and Dan was a good husband and a good father. And I know that he loved you all very much. And when I was talking to him when I went up to the cancer center, he was telling me about all of you and Emily and Andrew and his grandkids, and how proud he was of Matthew and Daniel and told me all the wonderful things that they've been doing. And when he was talking about him, he was beaming. He was just really happy. I mean, I know he was in pain and he didn't feel good, but he was still beaming when he was talking about them. And so I just appreciate so much the time I got to spend with him. And I'm here for you, whatever you need. I love you guys.
We're saving Jay and Tom for the end.
God. I don't cry too often, but when I cry, I'm ugly. Ugly crying. When Matthew and I first met, I didn't really know Dan too well. I would always talk to Denise. But when I started living with you guys, when COVID truly hit, because I gotta be able to take care of my dad on the weekends, that's someone I would always talk to. I feel like I always had to talk to. Me and him, we would be always the first ones up. Daniel would always be asleep till noon. Matthew would be awake, but not awake. He'd just be laying in bed. Then there's Lapo. But that's someone I would always talk to, just to listen to have someone. But I sat there crying my eyes out. God, I'm sitting next to my mom, trying to think of a happy story to tell. But all I can really think of is when we truly started talking, but in 7th grade, at this project. My dad, he didn't really ever teach me anything about tools or anything. He would always take over, because that's who my dad was. He does it himself. But I remember we had to create something, have our own invention. But me being the little kid I wanted to make a little buzzsaw. So we took bottle caps, hammer it down, clip them, which I'm not saying if it accidentally cut a kid or not, but he was there for me, teaching me the ways, helped me he soldered all the wires and everything, but teaching me how to use a power drum and everything. But God, I just wish there's so much I could have asked him more. I just know I'm glad for what Matthew asked him and told him that last thing, because I couldn't talk to him before he died. That I loved him, and he told me that he loved me too. Because even though, like Emily said, he wasn't my dad, but I had to count Matthew's family and everyone, like said another family. Matthew counts as my brother. Denise counts as my mom.
You were his third son.
Just how much I think the memory I really think most that I could sit back and think was last time that Daniel, Matthew, and I actually sat down and enjoyed playing video games with each other, playing Halo Reach, Infected, yelling downstairs and everything. And Daniel was supposed to clean his gecko cage out, and him yelling, "Oh, come on, Daniel. You know your mom's gonna get pissed off at you." But I just know that he was secretly happy that Daniel, Matthew, and I actually sat down and had fun together. And you guys know that I'm a call away. You know I can be there in 5 minutes. And if I'm at my dad's house, we don't need to talk about how quick I can get down there. It might not be the safest route, but I'll get there quick. But I love you guys, and you know I'll always be with you guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
How fortunate how fortunate to have all of the love from little kids, his sister, all of his life to a young man that he just touched. Matthew's friend, you know, that speaks volumes about who Danny is and who Danny was. How he touched all of our lives. I mean, I'm just thinking back how he touched my life and how I touched his life very quickly. We put a Murphy bed in here and I didn't anchor it to a stud and it came down and touched us both. I was so concerned about Danny because it grazed his head. I had Gail run to the freezer, not to get ice, but to get him a magic bar because it's cold, an ice cream bar, and I ran and got him a shot of bourbon. I could have a shot too. That was the kind of guy he was. You call him up and he just be there to help. And we all love Danny. We all love Danny, and we'll keep him in our heart. We will keep him in our heart. Jay, Tom.
Go ahead, Jay. I'll see you. Tom can't come up.
Thanks, Connie.
We met Danny way back when he and Jay had just opened DLN, and our friendship grew over the years, and we met Denise, and it was like, whoa, this is gonna work. And I think my favorite memories are when we would go over, because the boys were little, and we'd have dinner, and we might have had a couple of adult libations, and there was maybe a little tiddly-widdly going on, and Denise and I would end up laughing, and Danny would just look at her and he'd say, "What is wrong with you?" Which would set us off on gales of laughter. But Danny was always there, always smiling, always, he'd shake his head at us, and it just would make the whole room fill up with Danny-ness. So, and you know, we're always here. Phone call, just like everybody else.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. For those that don't know me, which I doubt, I came in second today. Take you back 58 years when I met Dan, and I'm second to Sue. Huh? Okay, that's easy. So I came in second place. I'm second to Sue because she knew him obviously longer than me. I was 10 years old. I just moved into Lakewood, and my dad always taught me the best way to make friends is to beat up the biggest kid in school. And I did. So I was on the street corner about 2 houses down from Danny's house, and he was leaving school, and I knew not to fight on school property because you'd get kicked out. So we were across the street. Here comes Danny, and I finished the job, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Dan." And I go, "Cool." And that started. And from that point on, and I'm wearing this actually in honor of Dan because this was one of his favorite guys. And we're not going to be able to go to any more concerts, but when I do, he'll be there with me. So from that point on, it went way past friendship. I mean, we were brothers. We did everything together. We experienced everything together, from love, life, you name it. And when we were 12 years old, we started a band. And by the time we were 14, we were playing every weekend. We played sock hops and whatever, but to the point of the guy that ran the band, he and I ran it together. We had the equipment, made sure the equipment got there. And Danny, I was the guy that wanted to just do stuff. You know, I mean, I'm the guy that will, let's jump off the roof. That sounds like a good idea. And Danny was the one that, now wait a minute, if you jump off the roof, you're going to probably hurt yourself. You know, and he was always the guy that kept control of everything. And so as time passed, we lived together, we worked together. I'll make it short because, believe me, in 58 years, every moment was either crazy or great or fun, not fun, exciting, whatever. Name any kind of superlative you want, it all fits in. Any adjective works with Danny. But to resonate what everybody else said, he was the best friend I had. And because I was an only child, he was my brother. No doubt about it. And not so much with my dad, but with me, he was. Our dads were exactly alike, unfortunately. And they iron fist and they ruled the roost. And when Danny called me on the phone, my dad goes, "Who's this?" He says, "It's Danny," and he'd hang up. and I said, "Who's that?" He goes, "You realize that's my phone, right?" I go, "Yeah." He says, "It was one of your donkey friends." He called all my friends donkeys. So Danny was one of my donkey friends. So I knew it was probably Danny, so I'd call him back. And we, from that point on, then we went into business. And I was the guy that wanted to just get it done, do it now. And he was the guy that said, "No, we need a contract, we need an LOA, we need fund, all this other stuff." But that was what we did. Did we argue? Every day we argued. Did we love each other? Absolutely, unconditionally. Are there a lot of stories I could tell? Yes. And anytime you boys want to hear them, just let me know. I told them a couple the other day, and they were like, "What?" So, yeah, I'll finish this up. There's no doubt I'll miss him because he is Danny. I don't know what else you say about the guy, but the one thing I will say is that the greatest thing that I know of, besides his family, and I mean that sincerely, because he really loved his family. The greatest thing that ever happened to that guy was the day he met her. Because he came in and he said, he did, because at the end, every Friday or whenever it was that we were leaving, I sometimes worked on the weekends, he did, whatever, but we would actually shake hands and hug every Friday before he left. Because we didn't know, maybe you get mad, see you later. And he came one day and we were sitting there in the office and he goes, "I don't know, man, what's going on?" And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "There's this cow." And I said, "Oh, here we go again. Whatever." And he says, "No," he says, I don't know. I think," and I'm going, "I know, I hear it, whatever." When you're friends, you go, "Yeah, just another woman." And he was sincere about that. You're the best thing you ever had to do. No doubt. Hands down. And you guys, every day bragging about you. Em and Andy, the kids. I mean, when he started doing, lessons with Noah, he lit up. And that's the way he was. And you said it perfectly. He had this thing going on. I could cut through it in a heartbeat because I just didn't care. But in his eyes, you could see that really what he was talking about. If you looked him in the eyes, you knew exactly what was going on. But this whole front row here, and he loved all you guys, every one of you. Even you, Tom. I know, dude. I'm with you. But all in all, he didn't deserve this at all. His journey does, it was starting to really take off for him. He was really starting to get into everything, and I think he was honestly, I think he was at peace because he had done a lot of good things with his family. But he didn't deserve to go this way. He just really didn't, because he was just too kind and too good of a guy. And it was, for he and I mean, honestly, every day it was love-hate. I mean, one day we were like arguing and ready to go take down, and next day it was no big deal. But that's the way we work together. That's the way who we are. That's who I am. And so anyway, I love him. I will never forget him. And please, none of you, I know you'll never don't ever forget those eyes, because that's what made Danny Danny. It really did. All the other stuff was kind of like a real hardcore shell, but down underneath he had a huge heart. He would to help anybody. But anyway, I miss him to death, and hopefully, and there's a song by Charlie Puth that says, "I've had a long day, without you, my friend. And I just look forward to seeing you again. So, thanks.
Well, of the three things that Denise asked us to read, she wanted to include the Lord's Prayer. And Denise described, I can't remember the exact words you used. Danny and Denise were spiritual, but not fanatically so. And I remember Danny describing his relationship to things religious to me. But his big problem was that most churches don't applaud after the music. And so I'd be sitting next to Danny and the band is rocking out, the organist's going to town, and at the end, Danny's like, all right! Oh. and that used to piss him off. He did not like that. And I being the professional, the full-time professional musician, he wanted to sit and, my grandmother once said after a piece I played her favorite hymn, but fancied it up. And my grandmother said, you did some things to that, didn't you? And he just laughed at her and said, yeah. so the Lord's Prayer, when Jesus was walking around on earth, it was common for the rabbis to teach their students how to pray by giving them long, complicated prayers with lots of verbiage, so that they had to memorize them. They have to have books. There was a prayer for everything, and that prayer went into that thing. It was just complicated. In the musical Fiddler on the Roof, one of the students goes to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, is there a proper blessing for the Tsar? Proper blessing for the Tsar. The rabbi goes, oh, of course, there's a proper blessing for everything. May the Lord bless and keep the Tsar far away from us. And that's what Jesus did. He gave the Lord's Prayer because it was a simple prayer to be the framework for anything you want to pray about, but it's substantial enough to think about, and the best of all, it's short. So I'll read it. If you want to say it along with me, you're welcome to. We're going to trespass instead of going to dead. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
And Jay has a special piece of music that Danny enjoyed. And while Jay's getting the music together, Anna and Alicia.
Are you ready, Jay?
Amelia, I'm sorry. see Danny again. Yes, indeed. Daniel, ready?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, I felt that, that's for sure. Just give me one moment. Okay, so we got a special slideshow now.
Very nice. Thank you, Daniel. Denise, would you like to say anything else? Matthew, I have a question for, not a question, I'd like you to introduce the couple in the back and share your project. Ed.
I didn't know I was sharing this. So,
please stand, Ed.
Yeah.
Cindy.
Originally the plan was to build a car with my dad, but since he got sick, I was doing it with Ed, and we were gonna take him for a ride in it, but he can't do that anymore. So we're gonna fix it up and put a picture of him in the glove box, so I'll always be with Ed. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, fantastic. And with that, that concludes our celebration. Have I forgotten anything, Denise? We've got one other thing. While Dennis comes up, we're going to meet down at Mod Pizza, which is 2 blocks north between McDonald's and Starbucks, straight down Pearl, and have some pizza. That was Danny's favorite food.
This is very short. When we meet somebody special like Danny that has so much love and so much joy of life to share, we come to them with an empty hand, nothing in it but ourselves. And that person like Danny comes. And over time, Danny puts all these wonderful things, this love, these gifts, these moments that we cherish. Good, bad, indifferent. And sometimes when a person dies, especially when they die so young, before their time, our impulse is to hang on to that and not let it go, because we want to keep that. We're afraid to lose it. Danny wouldn't want us to do that, because what Danny would want us to do is to share it. Danny would say, all that love I gave you, that great time, turn around, share it to somebody else. Because a wonderful thing happens when you open your hands and share it. It falls back on you and all the people around you. And when they see you are free to love, then their love goes up and it sprinkles on you. And in a way, Danny's loving each of us through each other. And we share that moment. So I'd like each of you to now think of a moment, just one moment, not the whole package. That's a big project, that's a lot of therapy. But just one thing. The first thing that comes to mind, working on the car, playing the guitar, playing the piano, walking into the bathroom and going, whoa! Whatever you want, put that in your hand. Put that in your hand. And think about that moment as I read this very short poem. Into the freedom of wind and sunshine, we let you go. Into the dance of the stars and the planets, we let you go. Into the wind's breath and the hands of the star maker, we let you go. We love you. We miss you. We want you to be happy. So go safely. Go dancing. Go running home. Goodbye, Danny. We love you.
Amen. Again, for those that aren't familiar with Mod Pizza, 2 blocks north between McDonald's and Starbucks. And Denise welcomes us all there.
Oh, I'm gonna end it. second.
job.
It's a nice memory.
I love you. I'm so proud of you.
Good job. Good job.
Okay, time to end it. Oh, I'm tired.
I'll help you button it up.
Okay, Mom?
Yeah.
We'll give Grandma a big hug. Yeah, give her a big hug.